The Legend of Zelda. What can be said about it? It's one of the most celebrated video game series of all time. No wonder why multiple members of the gaming industry had expressed how Zelda games have impacted them. The Souls series creators stated once that Zelda games became a sort of textbook for 3D action games. Even Rockstar founder went far as to say that anyone who makes 3D games who says they've not borrowed something from Mario or Zelda is lying. We cannot do it justice in one video, but I want to share with you two of the finest moments of the series and introduce them to those whom by some miracle have not played Zelda game before or think that this is Zelda. The first game, The Legend of Zelda, made its debut in 1987 on the NES. For its time, it was a game changer. Back then, every console gamer was programmed to play a game expecting to move from point A to point B and crush everything in between. Thanks to The Legend of Zelda, that all has changed. Its sublime success came from being able to translate a computer RPG to consoles, causing many of computer CRPG players who would dismiss consoles as mere arcade toys to buy the NES. The game offered an open world filled with puzzles, secret passageways, dungeons, treasures, and dozens of areas to explore. It was a perfect combination of action, adventure, and RPG elements that remained constant throughout the series. Link, our protagonist, most successfully navigated through each of the first 8 dungeons to obtain all 8 pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom, then proceeded to rescue Zelda from Ganon, the Prince of Darkness. The unique thing about it is that the order of completing dungeons is somewhat left to the player. This flexibility enables different ways of playing the game. For example, it's possible to reach the final boss of the game without ever receiving the first sword. In addition to that, it came with a save feature that used a battery-backed memory which was inside the game cartridge. Upon completing the game, the player has access to a more difficult quest, officially referred to as the second quest, with new dungeon locations and layouts, different item placements, and stronger enemies. Very much like the New Game Plus in the Souls series. It's safe to say that the game was an instant hit, a bestseller for Nintendo, selling over 6.5 million copies. In fact, it was the first NES title to sell over 1 million. Even before its release, believe it or not, there was a hype among Western gamers despite the absence of the internet and the fact that the game comes from a Japanese developer. Thanks to that weird commercial ad which showed a nerdy-looking guy in black screaming for Zelda.
The Legend of Zelda. A never-ending adventure new for your Nintendo Entertainment System. Zelda!
Although the series remains solid and constant for many years later, either on consoles or handheld devices, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link exchanged the top-down perspective for side-scrolling, which was a letdown for many other than the few scattered bugs here and there. That's why the series returned to its roots with the release of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on the SNES. Again, it was one of the greatest hits on the Super Nintendo. It refined every single aspect of the previous games, yet remained faithful to the original. But in my opinion, Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64 was the peak of the series. It's one of the most historically important games of all time. There's no refining here. It's a complete transition to a 3D world that was done effortlessly when other developers around the world struggled with this new concept. Set in a world bigger than anyone ever imagined or thought is possible, its mythic story spans cities, dungeons, mountains, forests, deserts, and divergent timelines. Not only did this game revolutionize the action-adventure genre with innovations like Z-targeting and context-sensitive buttons, but it really sets the bar high for years to come. No matter how many games you play, you'll never forget the first time you played it. Excellent storytelling with an emotional depth, top-notch visuals, amazing soundtrack, and memorable characters made this game on everyone's top 10 lists, and will be remembered as one of gaming's finest moments. So, that's Zelda for you guys. I'm aware of all the Zelda titles that came after, but those two games stood out as the most memorable for me. I cannot wait to try out The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild this March. Until that time, stay tuned for more, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.